So our first policy is 123.3 interscholastic athletics, sex-based distinctions. And from the last board meeting, we're just striking out 2 or 3 sentences as related to male puberty. School organization, the only thing we have to change is on line 1 and 2. We need to say elementary is K through 4, middle school is 5 through 8. And Mrs. Kupsky's going to talk about policy 204.
I did see her.
Sorry, we were missing one. So, let me go back. So you're done with 23 and we're on to attendance. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I sat down with the administration. We went over changes for policy number 204. Let me pull that up on here for you guys. The proposed changes are in the policy. The delegation of responsibility, we will report to children and youth and to the local magistrate. Superintendent in coordination with the building principal. We struck out home attendant, home and school visitor, and attendance officer, although that is a position that we're, if we hopefully can secure in the near future, that would be something we would like to add. If you go to page, everything is remaining the same. You go to page 5. Absences shall be treated as unexcused until the district receives written excuse, explaining the absence within, submitted within the 3-day time period. And it says administration may extend this date depending on circumstances. The maximum amount of cumulative days, previously that was 15, we're dropping it down to 12. Days of cumulative lawful absences verified by parental notification shall be permitted during a school year. As we know, it's really important for our students to be in school. We can't educate them if they're not in school. So this is all connecting with what we've been talking about is going back and being able to secure either a home and school visitor or an attendance officer. The unexcused and unlawful for purposes of this policy absences which do not meet the criteria indicated above may be considered unexcused.
So when does that mean that they also may not be considered unexcused?
Yeah.
Gotta give admin some leeway
Yes.
on that for special occasions, basically.
Do you want me to add that there, Bob?
Well, I'm just looking at this and you're listing these as lawful and unlawful absences, and then saying those that do not meet the criteria for a lawful absence, that previously shall be considered unexcused, which would be, I think, expected. And now we're being changed to may be considered unexcused, so they also could be considered excused.
Correct.
And should there be any guidelines, as to what makes that either excused or unexcused? Or is it solely at the discretion of the administration, of the building principal, or whomever?
Well, all of these guidelines prior to it will tell you if it's an educational, if it's medical, which religious holidays, like there's participation in musical performance. Here, if you go to page 3, Bob, excused lawful absence.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just raising the question that in the unexcused/unlawful absence, and that these absences which do not meet the criteria indicated above, meaning the unlawful absence, may be considered unexcused. It just seems to me that that raises the question as to who makes that determination, and are there guidelines, or should there be guidelines, or should it just be up to the administration to make that determination? I don't know that that's wrong. It just seems to be clear who's making that determination.
Well, yeah, I mean, we added, so if you look above, we added administration may extend these dates, so I would be comfortable in adding that administration can make this determination. Is that like?
Yeah, I think it should be clear.
Okay. Maybe considered unexcused as determined by administration.
So I talked about the criteria indicated above, it's not, is that referring all the way up to the lawful excuses, or is that just referring to the criteria of how soon it has to be turned in, the excuse?
It includes both, actually.
Okay.
The other thing that we did not necessarily change, but it came as a change from PSBA, is if you look on page 7, when a student 15 years of age or older is habitually truant, staff shall refer the student to the school-based, community-based. But from there on, the charges and things go to the student and not necessarily to the parent, before the student is being held responsible. One of the things that happens is when this goes before the magistrate, often, it doesn't matter what our policy says, the magistrate will say, go ahead and accept the doctor's notes. And so you could be a month out and the parent will just say, here's all the doctor's notes, and then they accept them. The magistrate will say, go ahead and accept them. But that's still not our point. Our point is we want things to go into place a lot sooner for the students so that we can get our attendance committee within the building addressing the absences of the students. But those are our only proposed changes. Anybody have any questions? Want me to go on to the next one? Next one should be 824.
So on that 15 years of age, if they're gonna file a citation with the appropriate district judge, 15 and older, they can just do that without parental notification? Is that what's going on with this?
Yes. But we wouldn't do it without, I mean,
Teachers should probably say that in here.
So this is saying that, notice will be sent to the student or the person in parental relation. So it was,
do you want me to change it to and?
I think it'd be better to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Garbage disposal.
Right.
This is the original.
Is it 824 that's next?
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, 824 is next. So you don't have the high votes up there. So for 824, we combined all of the exceptions in the policy and brought them to the front of the policy instead of doing it on the last page. And then on page 3 and 4, we put a lot of clarifying stuff in several of those regarding exceptions. On 16, we reworded that completely to give the staff the latitude they need to deal with that. That's really all, that's all we did with that. We made the exceptions more clear. Got anything else for that?
Just little changes that I think it came through.
No. You read 16, we also read the strike through. Make sure nothing was missed on the change. And what's the agreement? Before, originally it was just what was in the change.
That sounds better.
Yeah, that's a lot more clear.
Yeah, it's a lot more clear, less confusing. It's the way it was working before, people were worried about somebody being
Well,
concerned about violating and cutting off
Right, the way it was
conversation, we don't want that.
Yeah, no, it was kind of, the way it was written originally, kind of forced you to cut it off.
So the party green is to be inserted, party pink is struck.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's much better.
We still on the 24th, or do you want?
I'm waiting. You good with the rest of those? Most of them, it's just
Yeah, I just
clarifying the exceptions.
Yeah, I was just looking through the electronics communication. What's there is a lot better.
I don't believe anything.
That doesn't make it help. You know, a lot of stuff is kind of all over the place, and it's some things.
Well, I know volunteer coaching, you get that in the training anyway. Yeah, I'm trying to see what the changes were. 916, what are the changes in that?
9/16.
That's the volunteer.
The only thing we changed is, the TB test that was required. We changed it to, what we found is if a person is with, the only way that you really need the TB test is if they're with a student, more than 10 hours in a week. So,
Most of our volunteers should
correct,
be
correct.
direct contact more
Yep.
than 10 hours in 1 week.
Yep. So that was,
That would go away on the overnight.
Then that would probably be the case when you would actually need it. And that was the Department of Health.
it is the
fall in that, right?
A one-day event would necessarily mean
Yeah, so like a book fair or something, they would need it.
Well, you know, like, the one thing we were talking about was like Santa shop. They might be here the whole week.
Yeah.
And they literally might be there, so that might be a person who might need it
Yeah,
for that amount of time.
that's
But
what
the-
the state law at that point,
Correct.
not our policy.
Correct. If a parent comes in one day to volunteer, or a parent goes on a field trip, you know, if a parent volunteers one day a week, every week,
Yeah.
you don't meet that criteria.
what happens in a situation where there's a bus trip? And they're expected to be gone 8 hours. Bus breaks down. There's an accident. And ends up being an accident.
Guess we'll ask them for TV, that's when they get back.
Well, as long as you follow the guidance, the directions, and regulations of Department of Health.
Right.
We're covered as a district.
Yeah.
We're all in there, right?
When you deviate from that, that's when you have a problem.
So do guest volunteers need the TB test?
Only if they meet their criteria, that's 10 hours.
Or not, we only put the 10 hours. Put 10 hours on the position volunteer, we didn't include that into the guest volunteers.
Well, most likely a guest volunteer won't meet that criteria, but we can add it there.
What about coaches?
What?
What about your volunteer coaches? They'll be over that 10 hours a week.
Yes, they all the volunteer coaches will need it. I'll add that statement under there too, under the guest one.
I think it should be also known, made known that it's 10 hours per week. Yeah, for them.
It does say, it says 10 hours per week. In the position one, I'll set it also under the guest volunteer one.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, sure, so the 10 hours should be for both.
Yep.
Position and.
A career day could go.
On page 3, are we going to specify which tuberculosis test is needed now?
That I did not find in the DOH. I think we discussed that the last time, that it was the one that we have, that the employees do is the 3 days, is it 3 day or 2 day?
It's a two-step.
It's a 2-step, that's considered a 2-step.
It varies with the healthcare as to how they can fit it into their schedules, but must be at least 2 days apart, can be up to a week apart. But it's a two-step, it's called.
That would be the normal one that we would use.
Pardon?
That'd be the normal one that people would use, is that?
Yeah, they've gone away with where you used to get the little that's gone. It's not as accurate, so some employees that we have coming through will just only require a 1-step, but most employees, and I'm pretty sure it's on your guys when we do the physical that it's a two-step.
So if anybody shows up and needs it for the purposes of anything related to the school, you guys know that it's a two-step medical
No, we'll look at what you have written on your form,
on the form.
or we will ask if it's if it is a two-step. Department of Health is really pushing for a two-stepper most of the time. But the big issue is you get it once and you're done.
Right.
I mean, I will take and review people's charts, and if they've had it, we'll just sign you. You don't need it again. Most people should be having a TB already that they can just go to their family doc and get it taken care of.
Nancy, that test that you're talking about would be a certified test.
Yeah,
I mean, as opposed to our day and age, you can have people who say they're a minister of this or they're whatever. I'm just thinking that whether we should have saying that a certified test.
that's why I would
medically
put,
approved.
that's why I would put two-step in it and sort of,
What's that?
I would put down to have the two-step. That is the gold standard. And if they go to the Department of Health to get it done, they'll do a two-stepper too.
So volunteers shall undergo the two-step tuberculosis test.
Okay.
Just change it to read that.
Oh, add that.
That doesn't leave any room for any questions.
Well, I do that. I do that. I undergo that test,
Two-step test.
two-step test. And I am treated, or I'm diagnosed with TB. Right?
Yeah, let's hope not, but,
No.
but yes, okay, go ahead.
That's what I'm getting at. All you do is, this says you just have to take a test. But it should go on to indicate that, the test that proves or designates or indicates negative or whatever that proper.
Will be
medical-
certified, be,
Well, if it's positive, you can't be around anybody.
Well.
No,
it's
yes, you
certified
can.
in accordance with. the
Yes, you can.
I mean, not the children though.
yes, you can. Even if it comes up positive, she just made the comment, if it's positive, you can't be.
Well, not in
But-
the foster system then.
Yes, you can, because if it's positive, you've got to go on to further steps to find out if it's latent or not. And they need to then they just need to be certified, that we have done it and accepted that they are non-transmission. Because TB has never gone away. It never, you can't get rid of. It turns latent. Which if I take it, I'll lay myself out here. If I take a TB test, and I've been foster, so I know, it's gonna come up positive. Okay? So then my job, what I have to do to get any healthcare person to sign mine off, is I have to go have a chest x-ray. Now, being in healthcare, and we used to have to do this every year, they finally said this is kind of ridiculous. Now you do it once, and you'll go on. If there is an active TB, you'll see it on an x-ray. So you can put the, however you want to do your policies.
So the application and the disclosure statement should both be attachments on this policy.
And again, then it's most policies coming from employees, employers, I should say, to us, is they may require a two-test TB unless have had positive results, then the healthcare can certify that they're not active.
So rather than get into talking about the test, why not do like up above here, requiring those volunteers to try to provide proof of what they've done,
Proof of negative test.
proof of negative testing.
Make up here number
From,
4.
yeah, from an approved medical facility.
Healthcare provider.
You know, whatever, something, come up
Yes.
with the proper terminology for that.
Yeah, that would probably be your best.
That would-
Or through, yeah. Because then it's, takes all the liability off you and dumps it on us. If I'm gonna come in and, you know, someone walks into my office and I'm gonna sign a paper and say they're not.
Number 3, Should be number 4.
And what did you say? What are you saying?
Jared's writing something down, but something to the effect, proof of, negative, proof of a tuberculosis test from an approved and certified medical provider,
Or just licensed.
Licensed.
licensed medical provider. Can you help us?
Yeah, license.
Proof of a negative TB test results from a licensed medical provider. They had it in the past, they just provide a copy of those test results, and if they haven't had it, then they need to get it.
Or at least a script signed by, because, you know. Some of us are still in the dark ages and ours aren't on the computer.
Can I just put that down there where we have TB test, like as the next block underneath it, on page 3?
Well, no, we're making it number 4 on, up at the top as
And
part
it
of the
means,
certification.
but that's, you can have a positive and still get passed.
I mean, unfortunately, mine was active.
Yeah, but,
Right, that's what I was trying to say, active.
yeah.
I mean, luckily mine only came up negative, but I heard horror stories from.
And mine is probably more preservative that they run it with, that I'm allergic, but yet they don't, so I've got to go through. But yeah, and even if they are active,
I put the
through
two-step
treatment,
part
we can
where it
get
said
it into
the
the
TB test.
Okay, so you're gonna leave that down and just add in the verification. A lot longer than I anticipated.
It should be just provide results of a negative TB test
Yeah.
and dump it on the healthcare professional.
Yeah.
Very simple, boom, done.
So what if they
Then we don't
provide,
really need a two-step or
but they
anything.
provide results, but it's not from an approved,
Well, saying that part, from an
But
approved.
it says.
But I'm just
right
saying
here
a test
that it does
result.
say, in accordance with the regulations and guidance of the Pennsylvania Department of Health. I mean,
yeah, but the way it was written there, you only had to undergo a test, then say what the results are, then say you had to provide proof of it. This says undergo a test.
Yeah, because you are right, Mr. Bull, in the sense that we would have people that would come in, get the needle done, and never come back for the results for us to see, because they've got to come back at 48 to 72 hours for us to see the results. And if you're not, they can walk away. I mean, we take the paper and put it in their chart. We're not considerate enough to give it to them, but I could see some places, especially if they go to urgent care for it, they're gonna hand it like, okay, we got it, and never go back for results.
I think it'd be much better if there went,
I got it.
so take out that portion then about the test.
Because people are shysters.
So the whole TB test section there, take that out.
I think there, at the bottom of page 2, where it starts with certifications.
Yep.
But prior to approval, all position volunteers, I think it should be position and guest volunteers.
Yep.
Then I would put in parentheses, when required by state laws and regulations. Because not everybody, as we just mentioned, not everybody needs to have this TV test if you're not with a child for less than, or for more than 10, or less than 10 hours.
In a week.
Whereas the other things they do need. See what I'm saying?
When required by state laws and regulations. And then I'll attach the volunteer form.
Is the volunteer form separate from the disclosure statement for volunteers, or is that part of it?
It's separate.
If it's separate, I think they should both be attached.
Okay.
Were there any other changes to that?
Nope.
That was all? So the next 6 are just for periodic review.
Jared, I don't have the agenda in front of me. Which one's
Oh,
next?
sorry, 606.
I'll turn it on.
Aren't they running 606, I see right off the bat in the first paragraph, the 4th line down, so the position of elected tax collector, the school board will have the opportunity to decide the means of collection. I think they should read, the school board shall decide the means of collection.
If no one runs for the position.
So rather than saying you have the opportunity, you shall make that determination, but you have to.
Right.
Tell them, we have an opportunity to do this.
Right, right. Yeah, if nobody does it, we have to figure it out.
Where was that, Bob? Second paragraph?
First paragraph, the 4th line, so it's the position of elected tax collector, the school board, and where it says we'll have the opportunity to strike out those words and just say that the school board shall decide the means of collection.
change something in 612?
Bless you. Bless you.
I'd be happy to let anybody else call snow day and figure that out. That's a fun chore.
It says your designee.
I know. I am gonna pick somebody else for that. And it's not gonna be my 14-year-old.
She has to do with the designee now, prepare the guidelines, procedures. She's definitely called.
Yes, you just call it, but
What's 806?
827.
any of my, or we just asked a question in the paragraph understanding conduct, second line. It just says it's supported by a federal board. You want to include federal, state, or local board?
Well, when we've had that before, it's been investigated by the state, not federal, right?
Right, but if the state was awarded money, we have, we get the state grant.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind.
I guess what I meant was like, if it's gone to the ethics commission, I thought there were always people that come here from the state,
No, he's talking about where the money's coming
or
from.
where the money is.
Yeah.
Where the money is coming from.
Oh, yeah, we have money that comes from the state.
That was the most of our grants come from the state.
So under this, the only conflict, this portion regarding federal, or not the state or local. So you could, as a board member or whomever, could have be involved in something better thing, I think, would be to say all levels, federal, state, and local. If you got a conflict of interest, it should be a conflict at all levels.
It doesn't matter what.
Doesn't matter where it comes from, but, and does the word award, does that refer to grants? That,
That's in regular road grants.
is, that is just what I would suggest is next state or local.
Supported by a state,
Federal, state, or local.
federal, state, okay. on the website, it's called the Future Ready Index. It's a link.
I think
So that's how it's provided to parents and guardians, if they can find the link.
We can change that. I don't know how it was done before we had website access, that's how I.
Well, I know for the last 14 years, it hasn't been sent home. At least.
What, report cards, but the district one.
The district or the school report.
number 2 at the last section, it says the district report card and school report card are provided to parents, guardians in an understandable and uniform format. And it is sent back over language. So it's, is that inferring that it's being sent home?
I would think so, because number 3 says it's posted on the internet, on the district's website, it's number 3, so
Well,
they have done.
it doesn't say district website, but it should. It should take the internet off.
Oh, it does say, you're right, this says
You could-
internet.
You could put any place on the internet, nobody will find it. But when, if it's called by some other name, that should be in here,
Okay.
you know. Somehow, because you say you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know how to find it. What name did you call it, Wendy?
It's the Future Ready Index. Pennsylvania Future Ready Index.
Then who calls it the district report card?
PDE. It,
Is that how they refer to it as?
yeah.
And I feel like we should refer to it as.
Well, at least combine district report card / future ready index.
The future ready index, to me sounds like some state thing that I'm not interested in trying to read.
Well, district report cards, AKA future ready index, and so that you need to know something that what you're looking
Yeah.
at refers to whichever.
Typically, a report card is a report of how you have done, not what your future looks like. I mean, it can give you some insight to what your future might look like, but
So this is,
that's the reporting.
this is reporting.
Historical
right?
report.
Right. But yeah, future ready index, you're right. Yeah.
Yes, that was
So
very good.
it probably, when it should be reported on the website.
So like if you could see right here, you go on our district, Future Ready PA Index. But what do you want me to list it as?
I agree, I think people would have no clue that that's a district report card. And maybe it should on the website just be referred to as district report card. Then it-
Okay,
then it
how
can
about I
send
do
you to the
slash
future.
district report card? Like, district
Yeah.
report card with the link underneath it, how about that?
Right, but I think on the website it needs to show that.
So on the website, change the title. And what did I have to change in the body of this book? Instead of it saying internet?
District website,
Oh, no.
number 3, second page at the bottom.
Posting on the district website. So interesting, you see, it is so different to us by PSTA.
So is this report card, there number 3 says it's distributed to the media, distribution of public agencies. Is it actually distributed to them, or is it just available?
It's
to them?
available.
And I think, because this looks like you are, we are distributing it to the media and public agencies. Maybe it should be and available to the media and public agencies.
Okay.
Unless you're required to distribute it, I don't know that. But if you're not, I wouldn't take on the burden of saying you're gonna distribute it. I can say it's available to them.
Pete, I would like to ask, do you know of any other school districts that distribute this to you?
No. But they are available on all the websites.
On the websites, yeah.
I'd probably take those two out of that line, because number 4, I mean, the number 4 with the public access provided, it's maintained on the state's website also, so any media or public agency will be able to access it on the state's website,
Or the districts.
or the district's website.
Yeah, so you probably don't need that, anything after just the district website.
So just district website, period. Line through the rest.
Yep.
Brandon? Now what?
You got a copy of this? You need a copy of 115?
No, I don't need to.
115?
Maybe I will. I don't right now.
Is that right? Are we on 115?
What's that?
Are we on 115? I don't have the agendas.
115, yeah.
So is this open for conversation on it?
Yes, no, the floor is yours.
I need more of a back and forth, and I don't know who it's even directed toward, but I struggle with this policy for the simple fact that I don't think it's what's best for the student, and I don't understand what the goal of it is. So if we can start with an explanation on those two things, I think we can have a conversation going forward.
Me? The original process in 2018 when we started it was to make sure that the students are, when we originally started the 339s, the CTE programs, there was an intention for them to be shared between districts, school districts, doing different ones that they could share them. And when we were looking at the scope and sequence of the programs, the majority of them, if not all, could actually be completed in 2 years. But some school districts have chosen to spread them out to 4 years. And in recognizing the scope and sequence, we realized that in the first 2 years, there was one class that was being offered, that a student was attending another school district for which was one class. And at the time, well, still, we felt that it was in the best interest was to be able to have a shared program in that the student could attend half day. And so we had asked the neighboring school districts that we were working with if they would schedule their class either in the morning or in the afternoon so that we could do a half-day program. Other school districts chose not to work with us in that manner, and as a result, as it continued, we were getting notification that students were attending other programs for more than just the academic purpose. We were being notified, and I have documentation of that communication with other school districts, that they were being notified because they found a loophole and they were attending them because they didn't like our athletic program or their athletic program. It's not necessarily just us. So, in communication with PIAA and, with our attorney at the time, we determined that it was in the best interest to make sure that they were truly attending there for academic purposes.
So, a couple things. I would, if the assertion is that going to 2 schools at the same time is better for the student, I would argue that. Second, athletics is a big part of academics. So I would also argue that you're doing more harm to the student by making them go to 2 schools. You're disrupting their day, you're disrupting 2 teams really. So I don't know who that's better for. So I wanted to bring this up to have a conversation to see how we can get it changed or adapt it so that a student is getting the best educational experience possible. I love what you said in the beginning about a collaboration. I think that's the best way forward, and I think that would be a great way to keep more students here. But there's a reason why they're leaving, and that's the bigger issue that I think we need to focus on is why are students leaving, and what can we do to keep them here? Is it a complementary program, or is it a competitive?
No, we don't
one?
offer that. It's similar to a vocational school. So our vocational school in our area is one of only 2 that are comprehensive where the students go for the full day. So our model here is very, is not heard of in other schools, in other areas. The strong high majority of vocational programs, students go there for the shop and then they stay in their home district for the academics. And it would be operating in the same manner.
But we don't do that here though. We send Vo-Tech kids go to Vo-Tech for sports and for academics.
Right, but I guess that's what I'm saying is that I don't think that this is probably why it's an issue in other, there's another district out in western Pennsylvania that happens to have a very good basketball team that apparently has a similar issue. When we were doing our investigation, that we never found this out.
Right, but I don't think we're getting to, my point is, what's the best way for the student to go through the high school experience? Is it going back and forth, or is it staying at one school? Like I said, kids that go to Vo-Tech, they play football at Vo-Tech. So if kids are going to Central or to another school, why shouldn't they be playing sports there?
Sounds like a problem. If everything was a perfect world and they were going there for the CTE, it wouldn't be an issue. It sounds like the system was being abused for the sake of running on different sports teams, not because they actually wanted the
Well,
CTE program.
Is that case by case, or is that an umbrella? Because I don't think that would be the case in the majority of these.
Well, and again, in talking with PIAA and the other school districts, how do you determine it, but case by case?
You look at specifics. Like you look at each individual case and you determine what's happening. I don't have a problem with them going for athletics too, to be perfectly clear. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, they're not.
But that's not the
Yeah,
purpose of this conversation, but.
Yes, they actually are, unless there's a recruitment challenge. So PIAA doesn't prevent participation, it prevents it if there's a recruitment-related issue.
Right, so so each school district has to sign off on it.
I understand that. And I think what the Berwick Area School District and School Board administration is not really considering here is the impact of the student. I think that the school board is not considering the student-centeredness of item C or F in this policy as currently written. I think that your original version of the policy is excellent. I think that where you've lost the student-centeredness is items C and F in the revised version. I think that it is absolutely ludicrous to expect a teenager to have 2 schools, 2 sets of peers, 2 sets of teachers in the case of the academic issue, 2 sports teams, to Mark's point. I think the mental health implications that you're putting on our students are absolutely unacceptable. I would recommend that there is some consideration to some exceptions to this policy in certain cases. One of the policies that we reviewed earlier this evening, there was a long list of exceptions. So an exception such as approved on a case-by-case basis by the board. Or if a student has never attended this district, any school in this district, they should be accepted from this restriction. This policy is flawed in items C and F. And it is not student-centered. Think about your own children. You would want them splitting their peer groups and their schools and the logistics of trying to get from place to place. Ridiculous.
That isn't the issue either. You're now setting these kids up for bullying. They go and attend a school, and we know where it might be, and they're attending that school, but now you want them to come back to this home district to do sports. I guarantee you there will be nothing but bullying. Well, you're not actually part of this school, you don't attend here because they're down there. And you're just setting those kids up for taking what they need of physical education and athletics and participation in that activities, and they're gonna start hating it because of the way. And I know that from personal experience with my son, who got bullied so bad playing soccer in this district. And he was a fairly good soccer player. And I had to literally talk to Bo about the bullying that was going on with him. And I'm sorry, but that's what you're setting these kids up. And we all can go and look at the national news and see what happens when kids are being bullied. And that's what this district needs to stop.
Well, and I would add that, as I said at the last board meeting, the Pennsylvania Department of Education indicates, they specifically state that districts should not restrict the attendance of someone that's eligible for a career and technical education program. So although you're approving attendance, it is not the full high school experience. It's really ludicrous that we would decouple anything from a high school experience. Sports, the musical, I haven't seen any kids get called back here to do the musical or band or anything but athletics.
How would a student that goes to Berwick on Friday play athletics wear your jersey on Friday for the big game, and then you're at school in Bloomsburg because you're not allowed to participate in athletics at that school? So then I would be, at school on Friday wearing my Berwick jersey at Bloomsburg this week, just as an example. And that doesn't really seem like that would. I didn't even think of it from a bully perspective, but
It's bad.
that would be pretty difficult for a student to
You can look at the golf program of Benton and Millville. They are combined. But then you have a student that ends up going to, to participate from Millville and participates at Benton Golf. And they're wearing their jerseys for the football games or soccer games or whatever, but he's got to get ready and get over to Benton. He's wearing a Benton jersey, and that's your issue. There is turning into that. Now theirs is a co-op and a little
We
different.
have co-ops.
But I'm just saying, you're going to participate now with these kids that are doing this in the same thing, trying to force them back here.
It's really not realistic based on logistics either, but I'll focus more on the student impact because I think that's what people are forgetting.
Amen.
I am friends with the Lifelines. I'd like to think I'm friends with Lifelines. Very nice people, good families. Don't know your dog. Unfortunately, in any policy, in any determination, there's always the possibility that, talk about students, that some student may be left out. They think they're being left out, they feel they're being left out, that they don't think they're getting a fair shake. But if you make exceptions, and absolutely some policies need to have exceptions. When you start accepting certain things in a policy like this, it is totally going to be abused. Nancy, if you say that there's bullying going on in the school district, this district has strong bullying policies. Then it's up to the person who's being bullied or their parent, and you indicated you went to Bo wasn't, then shame on the district.
Shame on the district, but it was that I didn't want to push it that far
Well,
at that
then
point,
that's-
and that
that's
was my
your
choice.
That's
But
your
you're right.
choice, you know, at that point in time.
Yes,
We have to keep in mind, academics is required. Athletics, extracurricular activities are purely voluntary. They are not a right of a student. They're not a right, you know, whatsoever. So this policy was adopted because, and it was done, how many years ago? Back in 2021. So 3 years ago, when this policy was adopted, there was a problem going on. And this is the way the board at that time, and I think very properly so, well, I'm sorry, but I think really properly so, addressed the issue and solved the problem. You didn't, at that time, come and say, oh, wait a minute, this is gonna be bad.
Because
Yeah.
it,
Because it didn't affect you at that point in time.
well, we
Now,
had, our older daughter actually was in this program
But
when
she was
the
exempted.
first revision.
Because, you're right, she was exempted, but with the beginning of the class of 25, that section C, it wasn't, so, but this has been in effect, you know, so, and too many times, people have abused, not saying you have, by any means whatsoever, it's not your intent, but too many times, policies, procedures have been abused for sports. You know, we cannot deny that. We cannot deny that. And not just here in Berwick. You know, obviously, we had a great coach years ago, George Curry. You know, you talk, and I've got tons of friends from up the river. You talk to them, and throughout the area, they think every good player that came out of Berwick was recruited. They don't know that Bo Orlando was going into the State Hall of Fame, grew up here, you know, his entire life. But they only think about the players that George recruited. You know. Some kids have tried to move into Berwick for sports reasons. And George, and there were some other teams, baseball I know, and one, said, we're not bringing you, we're not accepting you to come in. There was a kid from Nanick up here, remember, who was recently, you know, that was a real problem. He wanted to come here, but it was very clear he was only coming for athletic purposes. Well, this is somewhat the reverse of that, but the district absolutely needs to have a policy that sets a line. You cannot, if you're going to go to the CTE at Central, you're still a student of Berwick. And you're going to have to participate in the extracurricular activities in the athletic, which is not a right of a student. It's purely voluntary if they choose to do that. And Ryan, your example of, you know, wearing my team jersey on Fridays, you know, that's not a right either. The school at any time can say, absolutely not. You cannot wear team jersey, you cannot wear your uniform on a school day. You know, so that's not a right of a student either to do that. You know, so Mark, to your point, I appreciate what you're saying, but to open this up and just say it's open this to exceptions, the district is going to have trouble because you're going to approve, or a board will approve somebody's and they'll disapprove somebody else's. And you're going to find, the district's going to find themselves in some significant lawsuits, and that's going to be the biggest problem. You know, so I really think that this policy should be maintained. The only thing I would say in section F, 6F is insert the word shall rather than will participate, but shall
So
participate.
I'm gonna come back to my original question though, is who does this benefit? Who does this policy benefit? Or what is the goal of it? Is it to keep
Well,
students
you
in Berwick?
you cannot look at saying it's only benefiting one person. You gotta look at it and say it's benefiting the entire district. You can't just run on, this is hurting one person, or this is benefiting
Well,
one
I
person.
think this
You
is gonna
can't-
hurt far more
You can't
people
pass a
than help.
policy just saying, we wanna have this policy because it's gonna help this person.
Well, that's not what we're trying to
Pass a
do.
policy, we're
That's-
gonna
it's-
hurt that
it's
person.
for-
So
You
are,
can't say that, you cannot do that.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the majority of students are going because of the program, and they play sports there. You might have one or two every 2 or 3 years that go for sport, but that's the outlier,
So
it's not
deal
the
with
other way
that.
around.
And on the other side
So-
of the coin, Nancy, you saying that if a child goes to Central and then they come back here to participate in sports at Berwick, that they're going to be bullied. Well, let's assume that the child goes to Central and he or she comes back and plays sports at Berwick. Is that same child not going to be bullied at Central? How come you're not playing at Central?
Yeah,
You know,
you're setting
so-
them up for both.
Unfortunately, you know, we're adults in this room, unfortunately, kids can be very mean.
Adults
We
can be
throw that
just as
term
mean.
bullying.
And they're probably getting it from home. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you know, but Mark, you gotta look at the entire district.
I am.
not
I
just,
think this is a
you know,
bad
you
policy.
just can't look at one person and say, how's this helping or?
I don't think this is helping anybody, is my point. And every
think it's
vote,
helping the district
I
overall.
disagree. Every vote
And
I
you're entitled
place,
to your
and
opinion,
every
and
vote I place
you're a
will be
board
based
member,
on
ultimately, you can
what's
vote
best
on
for
it.
the student, what's best for the culture, what's the cost to the district. And this is not what's best for the student, it's not what's best for the culture, and it's a bad policy. You may catch 1 or 2 kids every few years, but the majority of kids that are going for CTE are going for the academics.
It's not a
And I
matter of
do
trying to
disagree.
catch.
Athletics may be a right, but it is a huge part of
Athletics is
academics.
not a right.
I said it may not be a right, but it's a huge part of academics. That can't be disputed,
Absolutely. But it's not a right.
but it's a huge part.
I still want collaboration with the other school districts.
You're not gonna get that with policies like this. I want collaboration too. We need to have complementary programs to have kids from other districts come here as well.
It's my
That's
understanding
what's,
that there are
it's what's
only,
best for the entire region. It's not just Berwick, it's not just Bloomsburg or Central.
Isn't part of the
If we
problem-
work together collaboratively on these CTE programs, we build a great program for the region, and we bring jobs back to the region, and restaurants in Berwick and Bloomsburg, everybody benefits. That's the goal of education. It's not about keeping your kids here to play sports. We want to build kids up and create a better environment for the community. And policies like this are bunk, it's no good.
I think what you would find if you looked in other school district policies, and maybe we can do that, is that there are only 5 or 6 in the state of Pennsylvania that have a provision that limits athletic participation in a CTE program. And I think that that's a significant outlier. I'd be interested in knowing why. Berwick wants to be an outlier in that regard, along with Benton, Millville, and a couple of other local school districts. I find that very fascinating. And I do think that it's worth looking into, because as I mentioned before, this goes against the spirit of the Department of Education's CTE program design and guidelines for attendance.
And this is
I
gonna,
think
this
in
goes
those other
for,
school district areas that you're talking about, when I had said before, all of them have career technical programs where they're half-day programs. Which, just so you know, I mean, if that was truly how we embraced it, we could actually have more students who are able to go and be exposed to career and technical programs. Because, you know, they're going in half days now. And so all of those areas, that's why I was trying to say, I think we're unique, and we're not unique, but we're an outlier between those other school districts that do that. Their career programs are half-day programs, so it's not unusual, Mark, for them to be sharing back and forth.
that does not matter to me. I wanna do what's right for here, what's right for our students. I don't
No,
care what
but
other regions are doing.
What I'm saying is if we were able to have those partnerships with other school districts where they only have to go half-day.
I don't think that's good for the student going half day.
Well,
That's
we
what I'm
have
saying. I'm
parents who
saying,
want-
you want kids to have
We
a
do
social
have
environment
parents
that
who
they're
want that.
comfortable.
Yeah.
We do have parents who want that.
I'm saying that my belief is that's not what's best for the student. If you have parents that want that, fine, make that an option. I don't wanna limit that, but I don't believe that's what's best. And so this is an ongoing issue, and it's gonna go both ways. Berwick, the things we're working on in academic affairs, and the things we're doing here now, Berwick already has cream of the crop AP programs. Students are going to start coming here the more we grow and the more we build, and that's that's gonna have a counter effect for our students as well.
I'm not, Mark, I'm also, I'm not trying to steal.
I'm not putting this on you.
No, I think, like, I don't want it to be that we're soliciting and we're trying to get business from other, it should be a collaboration from everyone. And when you have a school district that openly advertises, you know, come to our program, it's free. And then the impact that it has on the taxpayers back in your home district, that is an issue.
Well, we could openly advertise here too, the programs that are here at Berwick.
Right.
There's
Not to
no,
say that they're
no
free.
issue with doing
Not that
that.
they're free, that you're not allowed to do that. Because they're not free.
That's a
They're cost
completely
another school
separate
district
topic.
to send us.
I
They
know, I
have to
realize
pay.
that this board feels that it's about the finances.
I mean, you know, I do have a responsibility to our taxpayer community too.
Absolutely, it's always a factor.
I don't know if any of the board members want to say anything.
I just think it's worth the conversation, so that's why I wanted to have it on there tonight. But I talked to you guys about it months ago.
We can get the ball rolling on collaboration. I would strongly support that.
So will there be some sort of enforcement of the band students or the other extracurricular things that those students can have the full high school experience when they're going to a CTE program in the local area, but athletes can't?
Yeah, because those aren't rights either, right? I mean,
Band,
band,
theater,
ski club.
those students have no issue. They do everything, a full comprehensive high school experience, which is the right thing to do. It's you're so focused on athletics, it's just pretty sickening, especially for a student who has never attended a Berwick area school and has played her sport for 2 seasons. It's really ridiculous. So yes, in that statement, I'm centered around Amelia, but my actual concern is for all the students that you're having this type of negative impact on. It's shameful.
Anybody else have anything else for this? Based on Mr. Bull's feedback, I don't think tonight we're going to be looking at changing anything in this policy. We can continue to have this conversation. So last thing is your,
Yeah, I just got a little urgent family matter, but so I'm a little distracted. Let me just say this. I'm not a believer in policy for changing behavioral or ideological patterns, okay? I think that you do need procedure, you need policy for certain things. Behavior is not one of them. When you have policy for behavior, that should be more of a procedure, it's a reactionary thing. I wrote this policy in the most extreme way possible to kind of prove a point that no matter what we have as a policy, it's not going to change the behavior. And this is a serious issue that we need to have conversations about, but I don't think it's in the form of a policy or even procedure discussion. I think it's more in the form of tackling underlying issues. And we are again starting to do that in academic affairs with things like early intervention, alternative education, and things of that nature. And collectively as a board, we need to have more of those conversations, and maybe it's in here or in academic affairs, and I would encourage everybody to come to those meetings and voice your opinions and concerns. So I could fight and push this policy through but I don't think it has any impact on anything. And that wasn't really my point. My point was to encourage the conversation, to talk more about the things like early intervention, more staff support, special education support, streamlined policy for discipline. So what do we do with behavioral issues and repeated behavioral issues? How does alternative ed come into those conversations? How are we using special education resources to funnel through the disciplinary process? How are we communicating that to the public? Something we talked about in the last academic affairs meeting was the importance of physical activity, physical education, more recess K through 12, using things that we know without a shadow of a doubt work for brain activity and behavioral patterns and the way kids are acting in school throughout the day, getting more movement throughout the day, taking away sugar and processed foods, getting all of that removed from the school. I think these are the things we need to focus a little bit more time on than policy for behavioral patterns. That was really my only point with that.
We are in the process, I think I sent it out to the board of a matrix. We have a matrix that will help with the secondary, middle school and the high school for consistency on how they're managing things. And but that's reactive. You know what I've said before, it is all about, because Mark, you really want the supports before they become special ed, because when they become special ed, I think Brenda, you mentioned something like that at one point. You know, there's different laws and regulations that we have to follow. Not that I'm saying that that's a bad thing, but if we can work on addressing those behaviors and those concerns prior to them becoming a problem. Like I've been, in the last 2 weeks, I've had to cover in the buildings, and our elementary students, the skill set that they're coming into school with
We have
is significant.
We have a large segment of our student body who lived through the COVID years, K through 9, even pre-K, I think, that are going to have a lot more issues that we need to be well aware of. I think you can probably jump in and back me up a little bit here. And I think this is of utmost importance for the board, and we need to be very attentive to it and address these things head on before we need a policy for things like this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the things in case the community doesn't know that we're doing a transitional kindergarten in both of our elementary buildings. I don't think that that's the whole overall approach. You know, in one of our meetings, I discussed something called a 4K, which is getting students in earlier at the age of 4 versus pre-K. It's a different funding, but it's getting those students the supports that they need and the exposure prior to them even, you know, because once they get here, if they haven't had those supports, we're already behind the eight ball. But we do need support from the board and staffing. We definitely need that.
But
It was good to hear today. I was sitting in a meeting with some other superintendents and the people that were actually applying and coming to Berwick. And it felt a little, you know, felt a little good in that meeting that they were like, oh, wait a minute, we lost that person to Berwick. So that was a big feeling.
you are right, though the physical education and getting them moving is a big thing. Because them even coming into kindergarten, again, I could, you know, you have to ask your administration how much of this discipline and behavior issues occur out on the playground, because most kids have no clue to how to do that. They don't know how to participate in a free game type situation, because most of the time they're home with their, you know, playing or stuck in and not allowed out. So that's the educational part. It's not just worried about special ed and all that. You're gonna get away from some of your discipline behavioral issues, I think, with your movement activity.
And
and start using the pool.
Instead of replacing our keyboarding, we're actually going to go with PE. with a PE possession.
With the pool, and Dr. Shotwell left early, but she came back after I had mentioned about starting to get the pool back into the phys ed. She's not realizing that we can do that without changing our physical education staff. You will have to hire a lifeguard for that area, but you have the adequacy to get that back into your curriculum, and you should. Because kids that may be the best when they're on land, and you have the others who have trouble when they're on land, put them in a pool playing the same game as basketball. You might be surprised that it changes things and brings kids in like, hey, wow, I can really do this in a pool. So yes, I'd love to support
That is actually one of
that.
the positives with the combining of the two buildings. You can now, with East Berwick having, 2 buildings in it, they have access to so much more athletic facilities, pool and the track.
And now you would only have to use the area is only transport West Berwick, where when we used to have it, 7
We did it in
different
4th
buildings
grade.
we transported up and did it. Why can't we now? Because, this is where I think the thing is, we're doing a lot of policies here, and I'm gonna add to it, I think we need to, the culture part, start getting some positive things. And I'm sorry I missed your academic affairs, but my water tank decided it needed me more. But that's what I think, Mark. I agree with you. I didn't read your policy,
You
but
don't need to.
it was one of, I can figure what part of your brain did that policy then.
Anybody else have anything for that conversation? That's our last agenda item. Anybody have anything to add? Well, I guess that concludes our meeting.